Samkvæmt fyrirlesararnir sem kom frá Danmörku, þeir ætla að tala hérna á ensku og spurningan í lokin og það fyrir eftir hvað hentar ykkur, hvort þið viljið tala íslensku eða ensku, en ef það á íslensku og spurningunum beint í þeirra, þá mun ég reyna að þýða ef ég get. Nú, heimurinn raun og verið stendur á miklum tímamótum, það mikla breytingar. Við hérna á Íslandi, við teljum okkur vera fremst í öllu og þekki allt mest og best, en það aðra aðilar líka sem eru að vinna að ýmiss konar þróun. Og það margir sem segja það að einu takmarkarnir í heiminum, það sem hægt að gera, það skorðast í raun og veru við höfuð okkur, eða heilan, eða hugsun, bara hvað okkur dettur í hug. Og margir vita það að Íslandi samt sem áður að vinna í ýmsum svona þróunum. Við erum með vindmyllubransa, við erum með smávirkjanir, við erum að þróa okkur áfram í leddi, það bíll að keyra hérna, það var að keyra hérna í síðustu viku allar götur Reykjavíkur á 10 km hraða, 250 km, að mæla ljósmagn. Og á þeim gögnum átt að byggja í raun og veru nýja götulýsingu. Það við erum svo sannarlega að gera ýmislegt, en það margt sem getur lært og það ástæðan fyrir því að í dag erum við búin að fá tvo erlenda fyrirlesara og einn íslenskan og vonandi munið vita eitthvað meira eða betur eða búin að mynda ykkur skoðun vandið framtíðina hjá ykkur sjálfum og ykkur fyrirtækjum eftir. En ég ætla að byrja bara á fyrsta fyrirlesaranum. So I'm going to change into English now. Thank you very much for being here. Cloud and Trolls. We very much appreciate it. I just told in Icelandic that the people will become much better after the presentation and know much more. So no pressure at all. So first of all is Trolls Ranis. He comes from Denmark. He is the vice president of the Federation of Danish Industry. A little bit about that. That's the biggest business organization in Denmark with more than 10,000 companies. So his network is very strong, and what he's going to tell us about today is Going Green, and the name in Icelandic is Á leið til umhverfisvænnar framtíðar. So the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Yes, once again, thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure being here in Iceland. It's actually my first visit to the Iceland, and it should have been the 10th or the 20th. But I know that you have had an escalating in numbers of tourists coming here, so everything is going well for Iceland these days, and I'm thrilled to be here also. Well, my name is Troels Ranis, and as it was said, I'm representing the Confederation of Danish Industry. I'm responsible for the Department of Energy and Climate in the industry organization, which was said is by far the largest business organization in Denmark. I've planned to take you through a talk on how green energy is changing the global landscape, Denmark being a pioneer. And the Danish example is key to my note here to you. I'll try to answer along the talk 4 questions. The first question is, why did we engage at all in energy transition? The second question is, how did we actually approach it and still are approaching it currently? The third question is, what have we achieved then through the different energy policies over the last 4 decades in Denmark? And finally, what are the global perspectives looking a bit ahead of us? So these are the 4 questions that I will try to go through here over the next about 30 minutes. But let me start with the first question, why? Well, Danish energy policy took basically shape after the oil crisis in the early 70s. When prices accelerated, especially in 73, with 400% actually, Denmark was, I don't know if you are aware of this, among the OECD countries that was most dependent on oil in its energy supply. Actually, we were dependent for over 90%. And the oil was imported for very few countries from the Middle East, especially Saudi Arabia. As a consequence of this, Denmark actually launched a new active energy policy. to ensure, first of all, the security of supply, and secondly, in trying to enable Denmark to actually reduce its dependency on imported oil. So Denmark chose early on to prioritize two things. First of all, energy savings on the one hand, and secondly, a more diversified energy supply, including use of renewable energy. So this was the Danish point of departure. And as you saw in 73, we actually had car-free Sundays. Many of you have probably heard of this, but gasoline was regulated, so it wasn't allowed, and I was only a young child at that point, but I still remember. So, going to the second question. How did we do it? And Danish energy development was before 1973 and the oil crisis. We had only very little experience with centralized political regulation. So the first energy plan was made up in 76, actually, and this was basically the first step into transforming our energy system in Denmark. It was a safeguard against the risk of potential supply crisis, but we met another supply crisis later in the 70s. And also to ensure that we could reduce the dependency of the 90% that I mentioned earlier. A plan was laid out using more combined heat and power, and with a high efficiency, and also using the surplus heat for district heating. And then further initiatives were also launched in these years to establish a more or less nationwide natural gas system. In 1981, we saw then the first subsidy schemes actually implemented in Denmark, aimed at utilization of straw and wood chips already then, and making biomass actually a competitive fuel through increased also taxation of the fossil fuels, oil. And we had focus also on developing other renewable energy resources as wind power already in these early days. It amounted to only about, in the late 70s, to about 3% wind share in the of the Danish total energy consumption. But nevertheless, we took on upon us the task of starting this energy transition. And also later on, and now we are heading to the 90s already, green taxation was introduced in Denmark. Actually in 1997, we had the first green taxes in Denmark, and also in 1992. And in 1997, we were self-sufficient with our energy supply in Denmark, and this was also due to the fact that we developed the oil and natural gas production in the Northern Sea along these changes that I've mentioned already. Well, going to 2012, and this is what I would like to elaborate even more on here in the next slide. We had in March a new political energy agreement in Denmark. It was reached with 95% majority of the parliament behind this agreement, and they agreed upon laying down a new political agreement on the energy policy for 8 years. This is the longest running energy agreement that we have ever seen in Denmark. The Danish energy policy has over the last 40 years been characterized with stable energy policy. No doubt about that, but we took a new step here, almost having a full parliament behind the energy policy going for 2020. And this is very good for Denmark. It's very good for Danish industry that we have this stable frameworks politically, because these changes are not easy to accomplish also in the coming years. I'll try to elaborate even more about this energy agreement here. The energy agreement is of course important to fulfill the target for 2050 in Denmark. We need to be independent of fossil fuels in 2050, and I'll just do this so you can have all the figures here. It will be easier. So, in 2050, but the energy agreement takes the first important steps for 2020. And the agreement gives a number of important results, as you see. The first result in 2020 is that we will have about 40% renewable energy in final energy consumption. The second result is that approximately 50% of electricity consumption will be supplied by wind power. And the third result will be that we will reach and affect about 9% reduction in the gross energy consumption in relation to 2010. And the final result is that more than 40% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions will be reached in relation to 1990. So these targets are very important for understanding the political agreement reached in 2012. And this is actually what we're working at on a daily and yearly basis until 2020. So the effort shows that the combined path in Denmark's energy policy covering, at one hand, the energy savings, as I've mentioned, and on the other hand, introducing even more renewable energy, not to say both biomass and wind power. And furthermore, we have along the way also have to prioritize the climate effects for our energy supply, and now we are reaching a target well beyond the obligation of Denmark in 2020 for reduction of greenhouse gases. The 40% is about, I think on average, 10% over what were expected in 2020. But this is through carefully thought, concrete energy initiatives that will reach the climate effects. So, but we have a target in Denmark on 40% as well, politically. Let me go further to the question of wind energy in Denmark and what the energy agreement actually have done there. Because it's clear that a large part of the renewable energy in the future will be electricity coming from wind turbines. And the energy agreement from 2012 basically established about 1,500 new megawatt offshore wind production. We have 2 wind farms. Hornsrev 3 is one of them. It's near the coast of Esbjerg in Jutland. And then we will build in 2021 an offshore park, also Kriegers Flak, around 600 megawatt also, and it will be made up with an interconnector to Germany as well. This is a part of the full project. And then we also have nearshore wind farms as well, and there's a lot of debate these days going on in Denmark. Is it possible to establish these near coast wind farms? Do the regional parts of Denmark want them? It's not always an easy task to establish wind farms in Denmark when people are close to the wind farms, and this is part of the discussion. But we expect that we will establish about these 350 megawatts, and they are in a tendering process right now currently. Well, onshore wind is also a matter in Denmark, and the energy agreement will also ensure that we will have 500 new megawatts in onshore in Denmark. But it's of course also a difficult task to find the right sites for the onshore production here. And there are a lot of discussion also in the municipalities, and there are planning issues around these new megawatts. How should we accomplish this? We use feed-in tariffs and tender procedures as regulatory means to achieve these megawatts in Denmark on the one hand, and also feed-in premium. And then we have a certain process for open door policy. It's an easy way, regulatory, to get onshore wind farms established in Denmark as well. So this is part of what we're doing on wind energy currently. Wind energy demands that we also have some requirements to stronger interconnections to back up this capacity abroad. To back up capacity abroad, and we need that even more in the future in Denmark. We are actually planning a new link to UK. It's called a Viking link, and you can see that the chart over there, it's drawn in. And we are also expecting to have a link to the Netherlands as well. It's called Cobra, and we need to strengthen the interconnectors as well to Germany. These days, there are bottlenecks to Germany. It's a huge problem for the electricity sector in Denmark because we can't get rid of our excess energy at all times to Germany when it should be attractive from a market perspective to sell the energy to Germany. They simply stop the possibility of using the already existing capacity through the interconnectors that are there. We have raised these issues also in Danish industry, along with the utilization organization of electricity in Denmark, and pointed out that it is not okay that the Germans doesn't open for the interconnectors at the times where we need to have a pass through the capacity there as well. So. Furthermore, not only interconnectors are very important in Danish energy policy, they are not laid down in the energy agreement from 2012. But they are very important. I cannot highlight these interconnectors enough. I always argue we need more cables, not fewer cables in the future. This infrastructure building is key to having an energy market, and even bigger energy market than we have today, through the North Pole energy market in the Scandinavian countries and Baltic countries today. So the interconnectors are key to that process. But we are also trying to use energy generation in Denmark smart, and then we have a smart grid plan as well, and we will roll out smart meters to all citizens in Denmark by 2020, and trying also to use more intelligent, flexible consumption in Denmark in order to decrease the peak loads that we have today in our energy consumption. Hopefully, this would make the system even more cost efficient than it is today. It's also about keeping costs down, along with developing the energy infrastructure as well. We are also developing heavily through the energy agreement on bioenergy. The energy agreement has given incentive both for industry to convert to biofuels. We have money laid out until 2020 for changing the use of fossil energy on industry sites. In all industry sectors, it's open for everybody to convert to, for example, biomass. It could be wood chips and other, instead of using both natural gas or other fuels in industry. But the main switch is to our central heat and power plants in Denmark. They are converting to biomass-fired boilers these years. We still have coal in our electricity generation, but hopefully through these initiatives we will convert to bioenergy. Biomass is tax exempted today. We also have subsidies for the change in central heat and power production as well, and then we have given some incentive also for some decentralized heat and power production plants as well in Denmark. But this is up to discussion, I have to say. In 2012, we discussed, should we have a tax on biomass? There was a lot of heavy political discussion, and the agreement was, no, not these days. From a strictly theoretical point, you should use probably a technology neutral approach. Also in taxation, it gives a more effective, cost-effective taxation approach with less distortion of the different technologies. But nevertheless, this was needed for making a good business case for the conversion to biomass. And biomass is by far, bioenergy is by far the largest share of our energy generation in Denmark, both when it comes to heat and electricity. We are highly dependent on biomass. It's an open market for biomass as well, and we have to remember that. So it's possible to import, and we do that also today. We are not self-supplying on biomass in Denmark. I will skip the wasting. I will go to the energy savings part. This is a crucial part also of the energy agreement from 2012. And we have different means for realizing energy savings in Denmark. We carry through energy audits, and we have tax rebates if you make voluntary energy savings agreements with the authorities here. We use an energy efficient obligation scheme, and I will look into that in a few seconds here. We have energy labeling requirements also on appliances. There are building codes for increasing also energy efficiency in the building stock in Denmark, and then also energy labeling of buildings. I will try to elaborate a bit on what has been the most crucial and result-giving regulatory framework when it comes to energy savings in Denmark. This is the energy obligation scheme. The energy obligation scheme actually puts annual binding energy efficiency targets on all energy distribution companies in Denmark. This is for the electricity companies, district heating, natural gas, and oil for heating as well. All these energy distribution companies, regardless of size, are included in this scheme and has voluntarily taken upon them the obligation to realize the energy savings. And the overall objective of this scheme is that the utility companies are to help increase the overall savings efforts in Denmark. We are focusing on achieving energy savings in the final energy consumption, and this is crucial to the scheme. It's about final energy consumption, and which would also not have been realized without the involvement of the companies. So we are going for additionality through this scheme here. Things that wouldn't have happened if we haven't made up this regulatory scheme for the savings. The scheme is, even though it's regulatory made up, it's market oriented in its approach, and utility companies can, via the energy bill on their consumers, recover the cost of the savings through the tariffs here. And the annual targets, they are then reported to the energy agency in Denmark by these organizations, by the trade organizations, and they are signing partners also to the agreement that are voluntarily made up, as I said. The individual companies then report their savings to the organization, and they are also accountable to them as well. And accountability is very important. It has to be correct, and there are a lot of investigation to ensure that we actually have these savings that are reported into the scheme. Everything has to be right. It includes a large degree also of freedom of the obliged companies as well, and they can actually find savings outside their distribution area. So even though they are a monopoly activity, and they are allowed to realize savings through agreements with other companies around Denmark, and in all types of energy as well. Each company can themselves choose which strategy for which measures to apply to report implemented energy savings. For instance, to offer free consultancy to the end users of energy in all sectors in order to identify projects. Secondly, to enter partnerships with consultants and service companies also to deliver projects, and to operate a subsidy scheme supporting energy efficiency investment projects. This scheme has worked very successful until now. Industry Danish industry, the companies, they have provided most of the energy savings. It has been the easiest way to realize savings, and also because there are a lot of large-scale opportunities in the projects in the industrial sectors of Denmark. And right now, it's not as easy as it was beforehand. We have had this scheme running for 10 years today, and I have to say, for 10 years ago, Danish industry was a bit skeptical about the approach here. But we've turned 180 degrees around, and we are certainly today still in favor of the scheme here, and has been beneficial to Danish industry in form of improved competitiveness, lower cost. So all in all, I think that Danish industrial sectors through these initiatives here are actually more competitive when it comes to energy intensity compared to foreign comparable industries here. But savings are gradually becoming more costly, and these days we're looking into the future scheme running for 2020. How should it be made up? I will also touch upon district heating. It's very important. It's not covered by the energy agreement here, but use of district heating plays an important role also in Denmark. And today it covers about 63% of the residential heat demand in Denmark. It's a very high share. We think so, and we have, I think, some of the highest shares of district heating in the world in Denmark. We cannot beat Iceland. I know. But less is still good. And we think we have this fact has given us a unique opportunity also to increase the efficiency of electricity and heat production as well by using the combined heat and power plants for the production. The development is the result basically of a strong political effort. And use of surplus heat from large electricity plants has been promoted also through state subsidies. So now you know how we have done that. I will now turn to the third question. What have we achieved then? Well, one of the main achievements of the efforts done here through these decades is that energy intensity in industry, but also of the economy in general, has been declining for the last 20, as you can see, since 1990, for the last 20 to 25 years. And it is expected to decline even further in the future. The figures shows the development in final energy consumption in industry, together with the development in the consumption relative to GDP of Denmark. And it shows that the energy intensity is expected to decrease about 50% from 1990 to 2025. This is a remarkable result. A part of the history is not about more energy efficiency. It's also about an organic change of the business structure in Denmark, where we also have had less energy intensive production located in Denmark. This is fair to say when we are describing, or when I'm describing this picture, but the energy efficiency scheme and the change in the industrial landscape of how to manage their energy consumption is certainly an large explanatory element of this figure here. Denmark is highly energy efficient. We are an energy efficient economy, and if you look at the figure here, we almost top the ranking of Europe here. Ireland is a bit above Denmark, but it tells the story of that we certainly are competitive when it comes to energy intensity. And when you look into the energy intensity of industry, we top the ranking of Europe here. So the effort works. Looking to the share of wind power, we have today a very, very high share of wind power, and it will increase over the coming years due to the projects, the initiative laid down in the energy agreement from 2012. As I explained, all the megawatts that are about to be established. But we have this achievement about 40% already today. But listen, it's not only about 40% wind production. It's about, at some days, over 100% wind production. We had one day last year where we had 140% wind production. So a lot of excess electricity production, which we, of course, sold to neighboring countries through the North Pole, the electricity market of the Scandinavian countries as well. So this is a good business case. And it has, as you know, very, very low marginal cost. It's efficient production here. It costs something for the initial investment, of course, but in the long run, it's good for Denmark, it's good for the economy, it's good for the pricing of electricity in general. So, and we are managing it from a technical point of view. Also, it's possible for our electricity grid to handle these amount of fluctuating wind production coming into the grid every single day. Many visit Denmark because of this. How do we actually do it? And the Danish TSO plays a crucial part, like the Icelandic TSO also plays a crucial part for the grid here in Iceland. But we can manage it. But we also have to remember, it's not only about Denmark building more wind capacity. The surrounding countries are doing it as well. So we are in a very wind-filled region, and no matter what we think about our electricity grid, we need to handle a lot of wind capacity in the future, coming from Sweden, coming from Germany, or otherwise coming from ourselves. So this underlines the statement that I made earlier, that interconnected and developing the infrastructure between the countries are highly important for the future. We need that, and we also will achieve then a more efficient market in the future. Well, use of district heating, I mentioned it before. Iceland tops the chart here and have almost 100% of the citizens served by district heating. But in Denmark, we have also a very, very high share that are certainly comparable with Iceland as well. And we have the possibility still to increase the district heating a bit, but probably not much. The analysis in Denmark talks about 70% for a realistic view of developing the district heating system still. It's about the larger cities, of course, still in Denmark, and it would be very costly if we should roll out pipes for more remote areas of Denmark with less inhabitants there. So there are potential and even more people coming into the cities also of Denmark. We have in Denmark also migrations to the larger cities here, and we are developing our building stock around the cities, and this is why there is a larger potential for district heating as well. But we have to think otherwise now for the future, because Denmark is going on electricity basically, and we need to have a way of accomplishing the fact or managing the fact that all the wind capacity that we are producing, couldn't we use some of the electricity in our heating systems as well? And this is about heat pumps, basically large heat pumps in Denmark, and we will find a way to finance the larger heat pumps. I'm confident about that, and it would be a good way to have these more integrated, more intelligent energy systems in the future. I'm also certain that we develop some combined efforts through the gas system, the natural gas system in Denmark, and the electricity grid in the future. This is expertise and its solution, which we also can sell globally. And this is also almost my final chart here. The Danish export of energy technology is about 10 billion euros this year. This is 2014 figures here. And it has developed impressively over the last years, and it's especially the green energy technology that we are exporting even more of internationally. Our key markets are Germany. It has been UK, but also markets abroad are developing. For example, US is a developing market for Danish energy technology. We are very proud of this. The energy industry plays actually a larger and larger role for the economy of Denmark. And when you look at the general export of goods, we have the highest share of energy technology in the export of goods in Denmark. It's about 12%, and it has developed since 2005, as you can see, with many percentages over the years. And we really top also a ranking on Europe here. And we intend to realize even larger export in the future. We have an aim in Danish industry on developing this industrial sector here, going for about 13 to 14 billion euro actually in 2020. But it will not be easy. Framework conditions are changing in Europe, in our key markets, and competition are getting even harder these days. So we also need to develop new pipes of export, and one pipe that we could develop even more, at least to my opinion, is about district heating and also district cooling. The potential is enormous. Final question, where are we heading at? What are the global perspective? Yes. The European Union had decided three new targets on their energy and climate policy for 2030, and Danish industry are certainly behind it. We support it fully, going for 40% CO2 reduction in 2030 and a share of renewable to 27% and a share of energy efficiency for 27% as well, or even perhaps higher. The Commissioner, Miguel Cañete, has the intention of changing the targets for energy efficiency to 30%, and I think that it would be possible. There is a larger calculation on the cost for this initiative here, or setting an even higher target here, but it looks good and promising, and we will support it if figures stands. This is a way to ensure security of supply also on a European scale, and also getting cost of energy down. And this is top of the agenda also in the European Union. I have a lot of meetings with the Commission and other European colleagues on how to proceed with this. And these are the targets also committed here in Paris, late 2015, where we had this new historic climate agreement. I attended the Paris meeting myself here, and it was fantastic, basically. I know that we haven't had initiative laid down through these INDCs, and National Determined Contributions, which it stands for, but these are basically investment plans globally for the Danish energy industry. And we're looking into what markets, what can we achieve, how can we get in contacts, how should we actually prioritize basically our export strategy. And these days we are developing with the government and industry a new focused export strategy for the energy industry in Denmark, and this should hopefully lead to an increasing share of export of energy technology in the future, and we are looking at this market here. Hopefully the climate will manage as well. We are not at well below 2 degrees, which was written into the agreement in Paris, and further initiative will have to come over the years. And this is basically about developing the market for green technology. And this is my final note here. As you've seen here, also according to the International Renewable Agency, they said that the generating capacity of renewable on a global level increased with 152 gigawatt in 2015. It was a growth at 8.3%. It's the highest growth that we have ever seen in renewable. And I think that we will see even further developments in the future here. And IEA, the international agency, also looking into the market for energy efficiency, says that it's worth at least in US dollars here, 310 billion a year. I have to underline. So the market is growing this was the final note. Thank you.
So we thank Troels for a very informative and interesting presentation. It's also very nice to see how you made this new energy strategy, and it seems to be working, creating opportunities for you. But I would also like to point out that it's very good also to being Icelandic and beating Denmark in something, because we are really struggling in football. So I will change it to Icelandic. Svo næsti fyrirlestur í dag Íris Baldursdóttir, framkvæmdastjóri kerfisstjórnunarsviðs Landsnets. Hún ætlar að ræða snjallnet í samhengi við afhendingaröryggi, hagkvæmni og sjálfbærni í raforkukerfinu. Og það orðið þannig að orðið snjallnet kannski ekki nýyrði, en það alltaf að bera oftar og oftar á góma, og ég mjög áhugasamur að heyra hvernig Landsnet hefur verið að vinna þessi mál innan þeirra. Gjörðu svo vel, Íris.
Takk fyrir og komið öll sæl og blessuð. Ég byrja á því að þakka Jóhann Rönning fyrir að bjóða mér að koma hingað og tala snjallnet sérstaklega í dag og fyrir að taka þessa flottu fyrirlesara til landsins. Mér finnst það sem Troels var að segja hérna áðan tónar mjög vel við það sem ég að sjá almennt í Evrópu. Það ákveðin svona samkeppni í gangi að gera betur hvað varðar endurnýjanlega orkugjafa og að gera betur hvað varðar útleysingu gróðurhúsalofttegunda og svo framvegis. Við stöndum náttúrulega gríðarlega vel hvað það varðar og erum með raforkukerfi sem 100% endurnýjanlegt og við erum með varmaveitu sömuleiðis sem 91% endurnýjanleg. Þannig að við getum staðið bara teinreist og bein í baki gagnvart aðilum í Evrópu sem eru að reyna að bætum betur þar. En á meðan þessi keppni í gangi að auka endurnýjanleika orkukerfisins, þá að rúllast út alveg gríðarlega mikið af nýrri tækni og nýjum möguleikum sem að við getum nýtt okkur hér á Íslandi til þess að auka nýtni í því hvernig við erum að nýta orkuna og auka hagkvæmni orkukerfana. Og við hjá Landsneti höfum verið töluvert mikið að horfa til þessara tækna síðustu árum, kannski fyrst og fremst vegna þess hver lestað raforkukerfið orðið. En aðeins Landsnet, þið þekkið vafalaust mörg til fyrirtækisins. Við sjáum flutning raforku á Íslandi, sambærilegt og við Energinet í Danmörku, Statnet í Noregi. Þá höfum við það eina hlutverk að sjá til þess að flytja rafmagn frá stærri framleiðslueiningum í landinu til dreifiveitna og stórnotenda. Og þetta hlutverk sem við höfum í dag, hvað varðar að tryggja þessi jafnvægi á milli framboðs og eftirspurnar á hverjum degi. Það að viðhalda kerfinu til lengri tíma og það að þróa það og byggja það upp þannig að það mæti þörfum framtíðarinnar. Og ég ætla einmitt að byrja aðeins á því í þessu erindi að fjalla raforkukerfið hér á Íslandi, hverju við stöndum frammi fyrir þar og hvert hlutverk þess getur verið horft til næstu ára og áratuga. Nú, hérna sjáum við mynd af íslenska flutningskerfinu sem að síðan tengir framleiðslu og dreifiveitur og stórnotendur saman á Íslandi. Og við fluttum á síðasta ári rétt ríflega 18 teravattstundir af raforku og hæsti afltoppur var 2300 megawatt. Þetta það bil 10% af raforkunotkun í Danmörku úr því að við erum með þessa dansku gesti hér í dag. Við erum að reka 3000 kilometra af línum og inn- og útmötunarstaðir eru þarna það bil 60 og 20 stykki. Nú, kerfið mjög einfalt en þrátt fyrir það þá erum við, ef við horfum á orkustjórnkerfið okkar, þá það býsna stórt ef við erum að bera okkur saman við orkustjórnkerfi annarra landa. Það vegna þess að við erum búin að ganga mjög langt í því að vera með góða yfirsýn yfir kerfið og við erum með óvenju marga mælistaði í kerfinu og líka stýripunkta. Þannig að við erum að stýra kerfinu beint á meðan kollegar okkar í öðrum löndum eru mjög mikið að taka upp símann, senda kannski einu skilaboð, taka upp símann, tala við kollega í framleiðslustöðvum og síðan tekur framleiðslan við og framkvæmir í rauninni skipunina sem kemur frá stjórnstöðinni. Og þetta tekur auðvitað langt lengri tíma heldur en tekur hjá okkur að stýra kerfinu. Byggðalínan, hún var byggð á árunum 1972 til 1985, 102 kV lína sem að tengdi byggðir landsins og bjó til þetta samtengda raforkukerfi okkar. Þá var raforkunotkun á landinu fjórðungur eða undir fjórðungi þess sem það í dag og ennþá þessi 102 kV lína að reyna að anna flutningi í kerfinu og þess vegna sýni hérna flutningstakmörkin sem við sjáum að milli landshluta. En við getum einungis flutt 5% af þeirri raforku sem við notum á hverju stundu á milli landsvæða. Og ég veit það til dæmis að í Evrópu eru markmiðin að vera með að minnstakosti 15% flutningsgetu á milli landsvæða og síðan erum við með þetta dæmi sem Tróels kom með hérna áðan og ég las líka í fréttum þar sem var auðvitað fyrst og fremst verið að benda á hvað Danmörk væri komin langt í að bæta við endurnýjanlegum orkugjöfum þar sem þeir voru einn dag á síðasta ári að framleiða 140%, 40% umfram þeirri raforkunotkun sem þeir voru með í landinu. Og þetta var vegna þess að þetta var mjög vindasamur dagur og það var mikil framleiðsla úr vindorkuverunum þeirra. En það sem ég tíndi upp úr þessari frétt var það að þeir gátu flutt öll þessi 40% sem þeir framleitu aukalega þennan dag til nágrannalanda. Þeir voru sem sagt að selja þessa endurnýjanlegu raforku úr landi og það segir mér að þeir eru með 40% flutningsgetu út úr Danmörku og styrkar tengingar innan landsins sem gera þetta mögulegt. Þannig að þetta hefur verið okkar helsta verkefni við stjórnun flutningskerfisins á síðustu árum. Það að eiga við þennan flöskuháls og þetta orðið daglegt verkefni hjá okkur í dag að fylgjast með flutningi á milli landsvæða og eiga við þau stöðugleikavandamál sem við erum að fást við þar. Og okkur hefur tekist vel til þessa í þessu og við sýnum það oft hvert afhendingaröryggi úr íslenska raforkukerfinu og hver gæðin eru. Og hérna þessi eftirsóknarverða tala að vera með 4 nýjur í afhendingaröryggi og þetta eitthvað sem við erum mjög stolt af og þetta eitthvað sem að iðnaðurinn nútíma iðnaður krefst og sömuleiðis heimili. Við ætlumst öll til þess að fá rafmagn á hverjum degi. En það önnur hlið á þessu og við höfum á síðustu árum verið að auka stýringar og sjálfvirkni í kerfinu til þess að tryggja að forgangsnotendur fái sitt rafmagn með þessum gæðum og þessu afhendingaröryggi. Og ef maður horfir síðan til afhendingaröryggi til skerðanlegra notenda sem við höfum aðgang að, sem á sérstökum samning, og við lítum á notkun varaafls í landinu, þá það verulega aukast og bara síðustu 3 árum sjáum við 10-földun í keyrslu varaafls og við sjáum líka að við erum að skerða í raun og veru atvinnulífið. Þetta eru fiskvinnslur og alls konar minni iðnaður, lýsisframleiðsla, fiskimjölsframleiðsla sem við erum að skerða í stöðugt meira magni. Þá getur maður spurt sig hvað ásættanlegt í þessum efnum. Það gott að eiganlega sveigjanleika til en einhvers staðar liggja mörkin fyrir því hvað ásættanlegt. Og hérna þetta sýnt í straumleysismínútum að markmiðið okkar á Íslandi að vera frá landsnetinu að vera undir 50 straumleysismínútum ári. En ef við tökum þetta allt inn í heildarmyndina þá erum við langt frá því markmiði og erum engan veginn í raun að standa okkur gagnvart afhendingaröryggi. Til að horfa á aðeins hlutverk raforkukerfisins til framtíðarinnar út af því í dag erum við í raun og veru að taka ákvörðun það hvernig við ætlum að byggja upp raforkukerfi til framtíðar. Þá gott að horfa á raforkuspá sem var nýverið kom út og hún byggir náttúrulega fyrst og fremst á mæligögnum aftur í tíman og mjög nákvæmri notkunarflokkun á raforku. Og hún að spá 15% aukningu í raforkunotkun til ársins 2020 og þarna ekki verið að spá fyrir hvernig iðnaðurinn að vaxa, sem sagt stóriðjan að vaxa heldur. Þetta fyrst og fremst almenn notkun og notkun minni iðnaðar. Og það 100% aukning í raforkunotkun til ársins 2050 sem kann að virðast umtalsvert en þetta bara 2% aukning á ári og fylgir mjög mikið þróun íbúafjölda til dæmis. En það eru nokkur atriði þarna sem eru áhugaverð og það til að mynda að raforkunotkun heimila hefur á síðustu árum farið minnkandi. Þannig að þar sjáum við betri nýtni, við svona fylgjum kannski svolítið í kjölfar þess sem að gerast annars staðar í heiminum, að heimilistækin okkar eru að breytast verulega. Ég man að val heimilistækja stóð oft hvaða vatt stóð á tækinu, þetta skipti engu máli hvort það var ljósapera sem varst að velja, þú vildi mikið ljós, þá var það vöttin átt að vera fleiri, ryggsugan, hún átt að vera með mörgum vöttum til þess að geta skilað árangri, eins með hljómflutningstæki, þau átt að vera aflmikil, þetta gjör breytt í dag, það eru komin önnur viðmið varðandi það hvernig þessi tæki eru að sinna sínum hlutverkum. Og komnar inn sparperur og fleira. En á móti þessum samdrætti þarna í heimilisnotkunni þá erum við að sjá rafvæðingu í sjávarútvegi og það sem verið að fara úr jarðefnaeldsneyti yfir í raforkuna. Og þetta mynd sem sýnir til dæmis fiskimjölsverksmiðjur sem eru búin að ganga mjög langt í rafvæðingu og munu vonandi verða 100% rafvæddar á næstu árum. Þarna sjáum við loðnuaflann á seinustu árum þrátt fyrir að hann hafi dregið saman og sjáum við hlutdeild raforkunar orðin verulega hærri heldur en var fyrir nokkrum árum síðan. Og þetta bara fiskimjölsverksmiðjurnar geta krafist 700 gigavattstunda af raforku á einu ári. Sömuleiðis það orkuskiptin í samgöngum sem hafa áhrif. Það verið að fjalla rafbílaflotan að það bil 15% af okkar almenningsbílum verði rafbílar árið 2030 minni mig og það áhugavert að skoða þar hversu mikla raforkunotkun það kallar á. En ef maður tekur til dæmis heimilisnotanda að meðal heimili notar í dag 4500 kilowattstundir á ári og ef að þú væri með einn fólksbíl sem rafbíll og keyrir hann að meðaltali 10.000 kilometra yfir árið, þá þetta auka heimilisnotkunna það bil 40-50% af rafmagni og hækkar rafmagnsreikningin kannski 40-50.000 krónur með við verðið í dag. Þannig að þarna allavega verðið hvað varðar raforkuna ætti ekki að vera nein fyrirstaða. Síðan sömuleiðis, jafnvel þótt við séum ekki að horfa á beina, að við séum að knýja bílaflotan beint með raforku, þá kemur raforka við sögu við til dæmis gerð eldsneytis. Ef við lítum til dæmis á CRI á Reykjanesi sem að framleiða metanól og þar kemur við sögu heilmikil raforkunotkun. Eins með vetnisframleiðslu krefst mikillar raforkunotkunar. Þannig að þessi orkuskipti í samgöngum, þar mun raforkan koma mikið við sögu. Þannig að þetta kannski það sem við verðum að tala þegar við erum að tala rafvædda framtíð. Að það eru fleiri þættir að koma inn í raforkunotkunin okkar og við erum að verða háðari rafmagninu. Á sama tíma þá eru líka orkugjafarnir að verða mun fjölbreyttari. Við höfum á Íslandi fyrst og fremst verið með orkugjafa frá vatnsafli og jarðvarma en á næstu árum munum við ef til vill sjá aukningu í vindorkuframleiðslu. Með rafbílunum koma inn möguleikar að vera með batteri inn á heimilum sem geta jafnvel framleitt inn á net. Og síðan auðvitað alltaf þróun í iðnað og við vitum ekki hvaða iðngreinar bætast við á næstu árum í framleiðslu og öðru og hvaða möguleikar þær hafa til þess að vera þáttakendur einhvern veginn á raforkumarkaði. En mér langar svolítið að fjalla snjallnetsþróunina sem hefur verið til staðar í flutningskerfinu á síðustu árum. Við höfum verið að leggja töluverða áherslu á þessa tækni og þegar við höfum séð möguleikana á því að bæta nýtingu flutningskerfisins og auka áreiðanleika þess. Og þá kannski fyrst að horfa til þess hvað snjallnet. Og eins og hann Haraldur sagði áðan, þetta hefur verið svona tískuorð, en ég held að raforkukerfi framtíðarinnar einfaldlega snjallt, þetta verður algjörlega sjálfsagt fyrir okkur. Þetta bara eins og þú talar snjallsíma eitt árið en nokkrum árum síðar þá þetta bara orðin sími fyrir þér, þetta bara sjálfsagður hlutur. En snjallnet bara stafræn vöktun á raforkukerfinu á öllum stigum og stjórnun búnaðar með gagnkvæmum gagnasendingum. Þannig að það geta allir átt samskipti við alla. Til þessa hefur þetta verið meira svona röð atburða þar sem framleiðendur hafa samband við flutningskerfi sem hafa tengingar við dreifiveitu og svo til heimilisnotenda. En þarna er þetta orðin einhvers konar matrixa þar sem allir geta sótt upplýsingar til hvers annars og möguleikar eru til stýringar, gagnkvæmra stýringa. International Energy Authority setur þetta nokkuð skemmtilega upp og er búin að mappa allar lausnir á þessu sviði og skoða á hvaða sviðum innan raforkumála hver lausn á við. Og þar sem við höfum verið fyrst og fremst að einbeita okkur að hjá Landsneti er hér Wide Area Monitoring and Control og síðan inn í þetta kemur auðvitað fjarskiptakerfið og samskiptakerfið allt saman. Sömuleiðis erum við með búnað sem fellur undir Transmission Enhancement Applications. Það er til dæmis eins og SFC-stöðun á Brennimel sem er týristór stýrt launaflsvirki sem getur stýrt spennunni í kerfinu. En þegar kemur að dreifikerfunum hér á Íslandi þá erum við kannski ekki jafn langt komin eins og er í Evrópu. En í Evrópu er verið að rúlla út núna snjallmælum í miklu magni. Og ég veit til dæmis að 200 milljónir snjallmæla fyrir árið 2020 í Evrópu er markmiðið. En við erum ekki komin eins slík markmið hér á landi. En við erum komin með viðmælingar í íslenska flutningskerfið. Og fyrsti mælinn var settur upp 2006 og þá var markmiðið með honum var mjög sértækt. Það var hreinlega að meta það hvort við getum bætt stýrimöguleikana eða sem sagt stýrimöguleikana í kröflu, að dempa betur kröflustöð gagnvart aflsveiflum á byggðalínunni. En við komum fljótlega að því að þessi möguleiki til greiningar og til mælinga í kerfinu gaf gríðarlega miklar upplýsingar og síðan erum við komið með yfir 20 svona mælingar í kerfið. Og mér langaði að sýna aðeins hvað þetta þýðir í raun og veru fyrir kerfisstjórnina. Hvað það þýðir að vera með svona mikið betri gögn í dag heldur en við vorum með fyrir 10 árum síðan. Þetta er sem sagt, þessi PMU-mælar gefa okkur mæligildi, 50 mæligildi á sekundu. Núna eru reyndar komnir mælar sem gefa 200 mæligildi á sekundu. Þannig að það er líka mikil tækniþróun þarna. Hefðbundið orkustjórnkerfi gefur okkur mælingar kannski að 2-3 sekúndna fresti. Og það detta svona inn mælingar eftir hversu hröð atburðarásin er í kerfinu en eru ekki mikið hraðar heldur en á 2 sekúndna fresti. Og hérna er ég með einn atburð í kerfinu, þetta er bara frekar klassískur atburður, það er útlýsing á byggðalínunni. Það er seguldulína 4 hér á sem tengist byggðalínunni inn að seguldu sem að leysir út, þetta er raunveruleg truflun sem var 4. febrúar núna í ár. Hún leysir út rétt rúmlega 9, það er slæmt veður, austan stormur og slydduísing. Og það sem gerist í kjölfarið er að það myndast aflsveiflur á byggðalínunni vegna þess að þessi langa byggðalína er raffræðilega svo löng og það verða aflsveiflur á milli framleiðslueininga á Austurlandi og á móti Suðvesturlandinu. Og að lokum þá eru kerfisvarnir sem skipta kerfinu upp í tvennt og þetta er eitthvað sem við erum að gera í ansi títt. Og hérna er ég síðan með mælingar sem sýna annars vegar hvernig við horfum á þessa atburðarás. Ef við lítum á flutningin eftir byggðalínunni, hvernig við horfum á það út frá upplýsingum úr orkustjórnkerfinu, hefðbundum mælingum úr orkustjórnkerfi og síðan hvernig það lítur út með PMU-mælingum. Og þá ætla ég bara að spila þetta, við erum sem sagt að horfa á aflið í þessu sniði, hvernig aflflæði breytist eftir byggðalínunni í þessum atburði. Og hérna erum við með orkustjórnkerfismælingar, hérna kemur fyrsti mælingin inn og sýnir að við erum með það bil 90 megavatta flutning eftir byggðalínunni. Svo koma skyndilega 2 mælingar hér og greinilegt að það er eitthvað að gerast. Það er töluverð sveifla á þessum mælingum að breytileiki en það er erfitt að greina þarna hvernig hegðun kerfisins er, hvort þetta sé kerfishegðun eða mæliskekkja eða eitthvað slíkt. Og hérna fyrir greinilega eitthvað mikið að breytast og eitthvað mikið er að í kerfinu. en aftur upplausnin mjög lítil. Síðan erum við með PMU-gögnin hérna. Hérna greinilega truflun sem við sáum ekki hreinlega með orkustjórnkerfisgögnunum. Hér hefst sveiflan á kerfinu. Við sjáum tíðnina á sveiflunni, við sjáum hver dempunin á henni og útslagið og síðan eykst sveiflan mjög hratt hérna undir lokin. Þetta sem sagt 1,5 mínútna ferli spilað á 3-földum hraða. Þangað til kerfisvarnir leysa út í blöndu og þá þessum atburði í raun og veru lokið. Það sem fylgir í kjölfarið náttúrulega útleysingar álags í eyjum til þess að jafna jafnvægi á milli landsvæða og það straumleysi sem fylgir svona atburði, töluvert straumleysi. En þetta til þess að sýna bara hvernig þetta birtist í rauninni vaktmanni inn í stjórnstöð hjá okkur. Og þið sjáið þarna greinilega hvað þetta eru miklu betri upplýsingar sem við erum með í dag. Að mælingur á orkustjórnkerfinu í rauninni allt og lágri upplausn til þess að grípa svona atburði almennilega, þannig að maður geti almennilega átta sig á því og ekki bara í rauntíma heldur líka í eftirgreiningunni. Við gátum aldrei almennilega skoða hvað var að valda hegðuninni. Hins vegar þegar við erum komið með svona mæligildi í hárri upplausn, þá föngum við þessar truflanir og getum sérsniðið í raun og veru líka viðbrögð við svona atburðarás. Nú þetta gagnlegt, þessi gögn, hvernig nýtast þau? Við höfum nýtt þau verulega frá því 2006 til þess að bæta reglun í kerfinu, bæði á einstaka búnaði. Sömuleiðis vöktunin náttúrulega mikið betur. Það eru miklu betri upplýsingar sem vaktmaður fær til þess að bregðast við. Og við höfum með þessu geta sett inn líka breytileg flutningsmörk í kerfinu. Þetta svolítið svona eins og við verðum með vegakerfi og þú verður að spara þar og það verður orðið eitthvað lakara og þá verður við með bara breytileg hraðamörk á vegum landsins. Það sem sagðir, nú þessi vegur svolítið holóttur þannig við lækkum hraðamörkin aðeins. Og síðan þegar aðstæður eru betri eða eitthvað slíkt þá hækkar þau aftur. Viðbrögð hafa verið aðlöguð verulega að aðstæðum og það mjög meiri þekking á hegðun kerfisins í dag heldur en var. Og við höfum tekið þetta áfram og séð möguleika til þess að þróa síðan víðstýringar ofan á þetta. Hegðun kerfisins í Íslandi þannig að hún svo hröð að það mannlega höndin getur ekki komið að nema í bara einstaka atburðum. Og þess vegna sjáum við mjög mikil tækifæri í því að hanna viðstýringar sem geta þá greipið inn í á mjög skammum tíma. Hérna erum við að tala bara innan við 100 millisekúndna þess að við getum stýrt á kerfinu í rétta átt aftur. Og hérna eru nokkur dæmi þessar viðstýringar sem í þróun, það eru mislangt af veg komin. En við erum með stýringu á álagi, sérstaklega á Austurlandi. Við erum með svona svokölluð microgrid sem við erum að horfa á landsvæði sem eru með veikri tengingu og lágu afhendingaröryggi en þó með framleiðslu innan svæðis þar sem við viljum geta keyrt þessi kerfi bara í eyju. Við erum með white area pod, ég held ég fari ekkert í að útskýra það neitt mjög nákvæmlega hér en það svona stýritækni til þess að dempa nota rafeindatækni til þess að dempa aflsveiflur á byggðalínunni. En þetta krefst náttúrulega mikillar samvinnu við viðskiptavinnuna. Þannig erum við að fara inn og vinna með álag viðskiptavina, bæði hjá stórnotendum og einnig hjá viðskiptavinnum dreifiveitna. Og við erum að nota tækifæri sem gefast þar til þess að geta náð betri tökum á hegðun kerfisins. Og ég ætla bara að gefa 2 dæmi hérna svona verkefni. Annars vegar það snjallnet á Vestfjörðum. Þetta verkefni sem við vorum að vinna árið 2014 og komst í rekstur í lok árs 2014. Þannig að 2015 var fyrsta árið sem við vorum með þetta snjallnet í rekstri. Og hérna áherslan á að bæta afhendingaröryggi. Við erum með mjög langa 102 kV línu, vesturlínu sem liggur frá Hrútatungu yfir í Mjólká og hún gengur erfið og veðrasöm svæði, þannig að það eru tíðar útlýsingar. En við erum með mjólkárvirkjun hérna innan svæðis og við erum líka með varaafl á norðanverðum Vestfjörðum og reyndar sömuleiðis hérna á sunnanverðum Vestfjörðum. Og við vildum verjast þessum truflunum betur sem eru annars vegar á Vesturlínu og einnig á Breiðadalslínu frá Mjólká yfir í Breiðadal. Og við vorum að setja upp hérna nýja varaaflsstöð upp á 10 megawatt í Bolungarvík og samhliða því þá byggðum við inn í varnarkerfi fullkomna sjálfvirkni sem að nemur þegar verður truflun og verður straumleysi og grípur þá inn í og stýrir beint rofum og gefur síðan skipanir til varaaflsstöðvarinnar ræsingu og tínir upp álag sjálfvirt. Fylgist bara með spennunni í kerfinu og pikkar upp álag allt eftir því sem að hérna á meðan spennan er stöðug. Og þannig getum við endurast kerfið á innan við 90 sekúndum sem að áður olli straumleysi í hálftíma, stundum aðeins skemur, stundum lengur. En þetta er veruleg breyting hérna og íbúar á Vestfjörðum tala um það að það verður straumlaust og þú var allar farin að taka upp símann til þess að hringja í orkubúið eða fá upplýsingar frá þinni dreifiveitu og þá koma ljósin aftur á. Þannig að þetta gerist mjög hratt. Annað dæmi sem ég ætla að taka er hröð álagsstýring hjá Norðuráli. Við höfum unnið að því í samvinnu við álverin að skoða möguleika til þess að geta stýrt álagi þeirra. Og þarna munar jafnvel bara brot af álagi hjá álveri getur munar gríðarlega miklu fyrir kerfisrekstun að geta stýrt í til skamms tíma. Og þannig komum við í veg fyrir eyjarekstur. Hérna erum við með dæmi truflun þar sem við missum framleiðslueiningu af neti. Þetta er svona milli stóra atburður hjá okkur 50 megawatt sem við missum af neti suðvestanlands og hættan er þá svo að við leysum út byggðalínuna vegna of mikils aflflutnings á milli svæða. En þá höfum við verið að þróa álagsstýringu sem getur dregið úr álaginu hjá Norðuráli á móti. Þannig að framleiðslan minnkar við atburðinn og þá kemur álagið og stýrist á móti innan svæðis. Og þetta kemur þá í veg fyrir eyjarekstur. Hérna sjáum við svona atburð sem varð hérna á síðasta ári. Hérna erum við með tíðnin í kerfinu og hún fellur leið og framleiðslan fer af neti og innan 3 sekúndna hefur álagið lækkað 10 megawatt og aftur 20 megawatt. Þannig að þetta er stýring sem er innan við sekúndu og getur gripið inn í svona hraðaatburði og komið þannig í veg fyrir eyjarekstur og straumleysi í kjölfarið. Síðan er álagið hérna hjá Norðuráli tekur á sig þessa álagsminnkun og er þá niður í það bil mínútu og síðan fer hún sjálfvirt upp aftur. Og þarna hefur við verið að prófa áfram stýringar sem bæði draga úr álagi Norðuráls en auka líka. Þannig að það eru möguleikar hjá Norðuráli að bæta við þessi álagi líka tímabundið. Það er reyndar bara í einhverja 5 sekúndur eða eitthvað slíkt. Þetta sem sagt hefur þann möguleika að brúa bilið sem er frá truflun og þangað til aðrar framleiðslueiningar hafa náð að bregðast við. Það er ákveðin svona tregða í kerfinu sem að þarf að brúa. Og þetta kemur í veg fyrir eyjarekstur í millistórum atburðum sem getur verulega dregið úr straumleysi. En það þarf að þróa þarna frekar stýrimerki sem að koma inn í þetta. Hver eru möguleikarnir með þróun viðstýringa? Eins og þið sjáu þá erum við með mörg svona minni verkefni í gangi og þau vinna öll sjálfstætt. En við sjáum að það þarf að auka samhæfingu í þessum stýringum. Það besta væri þetta kerfi sem getur bara fylgst með atburðarásinni í kerfinu og valið síðan þá aðgerð sem að hentar best hverju sinni. Og við viljum fara í aukið samstarf þarna með framleiðendum og dreifiveitum og raforkunotendum til þess að gera þetta mögulegt. Annað sem að ég vil minnast á að þarna erum við að grípa inn í kerfi notenda og við erum að gera það í frekar stórum atburðum til að forða straumleysi. En ef maður myndi vilja nota þetta til þess að regla kerfið meira í daglegum rekstri, þá þyrfti að þróa einhvers konar markaðslausnir sem að koma þarna inn. Þannig að þetta yrði einhver vara sem væri í boði hreinlega til þess að regla í kerfinu. En við erum ekki komin þangað enn í dag. Hver þá ávinningur snjallnetsþróunar? Getur maður einhvern veginn sett þetta fram í krónum eða viðmiðum eða eitthvað slíkt? Hver hagkvæmnin í þessu? Hérna sjáum þið öll flutningsneiðin sem við erum að vakta hverjum degi í kerfinu. Og við erum með flutningsmörk á þeim sem eru svona hefðbundi flutningsmörk, en við erum sem sagt að leyfa, við erum með breytileg flutningsmörk, við erum að leyfa meiri flutning eftir þessum sneiðum á ákveðnum tímapunktum. Og þetta eru kannski alltaf 30 megawatt sem við erum leyfi flutning að auki eftir byggðalínunni. Og ef nýtingatíminn á því er hálfur nýtingatími, helmingur tímans sem það er hægt að nýta sér þetta, þá eru þetta einhver 150 gigawattstundir ári sem við erum þá að geta flutt meira. Og í heildarsamhenginu, ef maður horfir allar raforkunotkun á landinu, þá er þetta kannski ekki mjög mikið, en þó er þetta eitthvað. Þetta er á við raforkunotkun 22.000 heimila. Þetta er á við raforkunotkun 55.000 rafbíla, þannig að þetta fer svolítið eftir í hvar þú velur viðmiðin. Þannig að þetta er sannarlega að skila heilmiklu þetta margin. Við tókum snjallneti á Vestfjörðum og greindum það úr þegar við vorum komið með heilt ár og skoðum bara þessa sjálfvirknifunksjón og hvað hún væri að gefa Vestfjörðum hvað varðar afhendingaröryggi. Og þar kemur þetta líka mjög skýrt fram að afhendingaröryggið og straumleysið er að helmingast við bara snjallnetslausnina, eingöngu. Og þeir eru komin þarna niður í 60 straumleysmínútur, það sem viðmiðið fyrir allt landið er 50, þannig að það er verulega verið að nálgast þarna viðmið á landsvísu. Hvað varðar samkeppnishæfni, þá er þetta sjálfsögðu bætt nýting auðlinda. Við erum með vatnsaflið hér á landi, þar sem eru þurr vatnsár og vatnsár sem eru betri. Og það er nauðsynlegt að geta miðlað á milli landsvæða. Og það að vera með flutningsgetu á milli landsvæða er algjört lykilatriði varðandi nýtingu þeirra auðlinda sem við erum með á Íslandi. En síðan er líka mikið talað erlendis og við ættum að horfa til þess hérna líka að þetta geta verið nýjir tekjumöguleika fyrir raforkunotendur og það þarf að vera hægt fyrir iðnfyrirtæki sem kemur hingað að horfa til þess hvort hann geti boðið þjónustu út á net og hvort að það geti verið tekjuskapandi og farið inn í það viðskiptamódel. Í Bretlandi eru þeir komnir með hreinlega aggregator eða fyrirtæki sem heitir Flexitricity sem sér að miðla svona sveigjanleika í raforkunotkun og miðla því síðan til flutningskerfana sem geta tekið það inn í sína reglun og sína stýringar og það er þá komin möguleiki fyrir fyrirtæki að bjóða þjónustu þar sem að þeir eru að draga úr sinni raforkunotkun eða jafnvel að miðla sínum varaaflstöðvum inn á net. Og þetta snýst allt saman að í rauninni lækka toppana og fletja út þessa dægursveiflur sem við erum með í raforkunotkun á landinu. Mig langar aðeins að minnast á rafbílana út af því að það sem er svo skemmtilegt við þá er að þeir eru svolítið svona tveir í einu. Þetta er náttúrulega að fara úr jarðefnaeldsneyti yfir í raforkuna og knýja bifreiðar með þeim hætti. En það sem vinnst með þeim líka er náttúrulega batteríin sem að fylgja rafbílnum. Og það er mikið verið að tala að batterívæða raforkukerfi og svo framvegis að geysilega dýrt ennþá. En mikil þróun þó. En rafbílinn sjálfur sem sagt er ekki bara ökutæki, orðið ökutæki heldur er þetta þá líka batteri, rafgeymsla sem er hægt að nota í báðar áttir. Og það er í dag 800 rafbílar á Íslandi og þróunin er spáð verið í þá áttina að þeim muni fjölga. Og það verður að skoða sem sagt þetta sem möguleika til reglunar inn á netið. Og þarna tek ég dæmi, ég tók þetta frá honum Jakobi hjá Orkuveitu Reykjavíkur, að gefi dæmi að 10% bílaflotans væru rafbílar og 50% af þeim væru tengdir neti og þá þarna komið 50 megawatt í reglunarafl. Og það rauninni reglunarafl sem við erum með í dag í kerfinu 50 megawatt. Þannig að þetta bara allt það sem við höfum í dag til þess að regla kerfið. Þannig að þarna geysilegu möguleiki og þarf að skoðast í samhengi við rafbílaveðinguna. Að ekki bara eldsneyti sem við spörum, heldur líka hvernig rafbíllinn getur nýst til þess að bæta nýtni raforkukerfisins og þá náttúrulega koma veitukerfin þarna inni líka. Ég ætla að enda þetta svolítið á bara hvernig þetta í takt við þá nýsköpun og þróun sem að gerast í Evrópu. Maður tók eftir hjá Tróels áðan, það svona ákveðin keppni í gangi við að koma þessum endurnýjanlegu orkugjöfum inn á net. Það skapar fullt af nýjum áskorunum í evrópska raforkukerfinu. Frá því hafa verið með hefðbundin kolaorkuver, vatnsafls, eða ég ætla nú ekki að nefna vatnsaflsver en þau verða þarna áfram. En hefðbundin stór kjarnorkuver og svo framvegis með mikla tregðu, það að fara yfir í dreifða framleiðslu, miklu smærri einingar og þetta breytir verulega hegðun evrópska raforkukerfisins. Og það eru mjög mikla rannsóknir sem eiga sér stað á því hvernig á að stýra þessu framtíðar raforkukerfi. Og þá oft horft til Íslands vegna þess að við erum nú þegar með 100% endurnýjanlega raforku á Íslandi og við erum með lítið kerfi með lágt tregðuvægi. Þannig að við erum í rauninni svolítið sýnidæmi það sem koma í Evrópu. Og þess vegna höfum við verið dregin inn í núna 2 stóra Evrópuverkefni til þess að taka þátt í þeim, setja upp pælóta og vinna með íslenska kerfið. Og það stöðugt að aukast það fjármagn sem sett í nýsköpun og rannsóknir í Evrópu og það sem flutningsfyrirtækin í Evrópu að leggja áherslu á að finna leiðir til þess að stýra framtíðar raforkukerfinu með betri hætti heldur en gert í dag. Og hérna ég bara með svona tölur þetta, en áherslan náttúrulega á orkunýtnina, samkeppnishæfni og snjallar borgir og samfélög. Og hérna yfirlit yfir þau rannsóknarverkefni sem Landsnet tekur þátt í og það eru nokkur þarna sem ég vil bara benda á, snjallnetið sem ég búin að tala Og síðan það evrópskt verkefni sem heitir Garpur sem fjallar áreiðanleika raforkukerfa. Hvernig getum við metið áreiðanleika raforkukerfa með tilkomu allra þessara snjallnetslausna sem eru komin inn. Það þarf að taka tillit til þess að við erum komin með sjálfvirkni í kerfin og það breytir áreiðanleika kerfana verulega og við þurfum að geta skipulagt reksturinn með tilliti til þeirra og skilið hvaða áhrif það hefur á afhendingaröryggið. Og síðan það Migrate verkefni sem nýtt verkefni og hófst í byrjun árs og stórt evrópskt verkefni upp á 18 milljónir evra. Við tökum þátt í því ásamt 10 öðrum flutningsfyrirtækjum og fjöldanum öllum af háskólum. Og þar verið að horfa á það hvernig maður getur stýrt raforkukerfi með lágt tregðuvægi, með dreifða raforkuframleiðslu, endurnýjanlega orkugjafa og svo framvegis. Og þar verið að horfa á einmitt svona viðstýringar þar sem þær eru samræmingu viðstýringa. En bara að lokum, snjallnetsvæðing hluti af framtíðarsýn Landsnets. Þetta bara eðlilegur hluti af stjórnar raforkukerfisins, að nota þær lausnir sem að koma fram á markaðinn í dag. Það geysilegur kraftur í rannsóknarstarfi í Evrópu og mikil tækifæri þar til þess að taka þátt. Við höfum séð það að innleiðing nýrra lausna hér á Íslandi töluvert hraðara heldur en gerist erlendis. Og það mikil tækifæri fólgin í því. Og þess vegna mikilvægt að byrja strax að við þekkjum okkar raforkunotendur á Íslandi vel og undirbúum jarðveginn fyrir nýja tækni og svo vitum við þegar hún tilbúin, þegar hún nægjanlega hagkvæm og svo framvegis þá erum við fljót að innleiða hana. Þar höfum við töluvert forskot. Þannig að ég vil bara enda á þessum orðum að það margt spennandi framundan í raforkukerfinu, bæði erlendis og og hérlendis. Við tókum saman fyrir vorfund Landsnets núna daginn svona skemmtileg fréttaskot inn í framtíðina. Og mér langaði að sýna ykkur eitt af þessum fréttaskotum. Það hún Hilda Jana Gísladóttir og Sigurður Ingi Friðleifsson hjá Orkusetri sem setti þetta fram fyrir okkur. Ég ætla að spila eitt af þessum skotum. Takk.
Bilun kom upp í gagnaveri Google á Blönduósi í nótt með þeim afleiðingum að snjallorkukerfi liggja nú niðri. Það ýmislegt sem landsmenn þurfa að hafa í huga vegna þessa. Sigurður Ingi Friðleifsson.
Já, takk fyrir þetta Hilda. Það sem gerist nú að ekkert kerfi sjálfvirkt og íbúar sjálfir þurfa raun og veru að stilla af sín eigin raforkukerfi. Samkvæmt tilmælum frá Landsnet eru íbúar á Norðurlandi beðnir að senda alla eigin framleiðslu úr sólarcellum inn á kerfið á meðan íbúar á höfuðborgarsvæðinu eru beðnir að taka inn eigin notkun í gegnum rafbílinn sín. Þetta verður gert til þess að jafna út álagið á kerfinu meðan allar ölduvirkjanir á Austurlandi munu framleiða nægt vetni til að tryggja að varafl sé til staðar.
Þá fréttatíma framtíðarinnar 5. apríl árið 2040 lokið. Góðar stundir.
Gaman að sjá hvernig þetta verður leyst í framtíðinni. Takk kærlega fyrir mjög áhugaverðan fyrirlestur. Ég var alltaf að draga andan. Þetta mjög áhugavert. En ég ætla ekki að verða versti fundarstjóri í heimi, þannig að við ætlum að keyra bara strax næsta fyrirlestur í gang. So our next speaker comes from Denmark. His name is Claus Madsen. He comes from ABB. And for those of you who don't know that ABB is the biggest producer in the world in the power system and power products. So Claus, the stage is yours.
Thank you. And again, thank you for taking your time out of your business days to come listen to our presentations. Troels told you that this was his first time to Iceland. I've been here 3 times and obviously fell in love with the country the first time. Fantastic country, fantastic nature. I love coming up here and love obviously doing business here as well. That's right here. So my presentation is about global trends. Obviously there's a lot of global trends. The global trends that I'm presenting today are the global trends that ABB sees from a technology point of view. There's obviously lots of global trends that I'm not going to cover in my presentation today. Allow me just to do a little bit of advertisements so you know who ABB is if you don't know the ABB group. A global company, what we do is basically it's power and automation. 40% of the business is power and 60% automation. Who do we do that for? We do it for utility companies, we do it for industry customers, and we do it in transportation and infrastructure. We do it globally. We are, as you can see, pretty much evenly spread in the geographies, the America, Middle East, or Middle East, Africa, Americas and Europe. 36 billion in revenue, active in more than 100 countries, 135,000 employees, so obviously a big organization. In Denmark, we do about $450 million yearly business. So when we talk about the changes, I think that we are in for a lot of changes. We already experience a lot of changes, and most of us, and I can for sure include myself, if I look back to when I was a very young guy, I mean, all the things that has happened in my lifetime is amazing. And I think looking ahead, it's going to be even more amazing. I think that technology in many ways is going to explode and make our lives easier. But like everything else in life, there's nothing that's good without also an opportunity of a black side. But I think we will experience, and that's basically my presentation, broken down into 4 areas. In the houses we live, where we work, but typically in the buildings that we occupy, it'll change dramatically. The whole devices, the Internet of Things, the accessibility of information, is already changing. It'll change even more rapidly in the future. Once we leave our home and we move into society and we move around, the way that we are being transported and moved around is going to change dramatically. When we go to work, the way that work is organized, the way that manufacturing is being done today and tomorrow is going to change dramatically. And finally, the way that we generate energy is changing, and it will continue to change. So those are kind of the four pillars in the changes, and it's all tied into obviously the internet and Internet of Things. Living, the first area. There's no doubt that, and this goes for commercial buildings, it goes for private buildings, office buildings, it goes for hospitals, that will change immensely. 40% of energy globally is actually consumed by buildings and activities in buildings. And the technology is floating into buildings like never before, because what is a factory, or what we used to do in a factory, automating, we're actually now seeing in more and more public buildings, office buildings, and hospitals. We see the technology floating into the building, allowing us to do things in the building we never were able to do before. So the technology is going to be, and is by definition obviously complex. The user side of it is supposed to be friendly and ease of use. We also see it floating into homes and apartment buildings. So things that we didn't think about in the future is going to be automatically integrated. We're going to walk into a building, could be our home, where whenever we are active in the building, we are using the building, the blinds are going to be open or shut depending on the temperature. When we are away, actually, the energy of the building is going to be generated by means of sun. When the sun is shining, the blinds can open up and let the sunshine in and heat up the building if that's the need, or the other ways around, shut it off to keep it cool. It'll measure the, as you can see here, a lot of the features that is in modern buildings that can generate features. We can read humidity, CO2, presence of people, energy monitoring, heating and cooling, lights, door entry systems. We're actually selling quite a few of those door entry systems calling Welcome. Allows you to lay on your couch watching, hopefully Iceland beats somebody in football this summer, and somebody calls the doorbell, and by means of your smartphone you can see who's calling your door, and you can just basically let them in with a push on the bottom. That is actually happening as we speak. We're selling quite a few of those actually in Copenhagen in new facilities being built. We also see the internet is being used for buildings to be part of the energy community. So buildings used to be fed by distribution line with energy, electrical energy. We are now seeing things that we call prosumer, where you can have solar cells on your roof, you can have a little windmill in your backyard, and you suddenly become, or the household become, an energy producer and supposed to also produce energy and sell the energy back to the electricity company. That is already happening. You can use the price signals to detect when is low pricing energy, so that's the time to buy energy, to have your freezer cool down to the lowest possible degree that it makes sense. And when the prices goes up, you basically stop activating your freezer. All that obviously completely automatically, from a user's point of view. You'll never see it, you'll never touch it. It just happens. In Copenhagen, and some of you have probably been in Copenhagen, and this is called Nordhavn. Actually, this entire peninsula doesn't exist yet, not all of it. The inner part does. The outer part will be built up with landfill as the metro is being built. So you basically take the earth from the metro and you dump it in the ocean, and you will gradually build this peninsula. So over the next 50 years, quite a long time, but nevertheless, there'll be 40,000 residents and 40,000 jobs. It does support the ambition of Copenhagen to be CO2 neutral by 2025. And it does also create a fantastic playing ground or testing ground for new technology. So there is a smart grid project. This is the biggest, by far the biggest in Denmark, funded by EUDP, to test new technologies, smart grid technologies. And this is basically how it's broken down. It's broken down into 2 work packages, 9 work packages in total. We're working with Dong, the big utility. Hofor, we're doing the heating part of it and the water. We're working with municipal of Copenhagen, the Harbor of Copenhagen, DTU, the Technical University of Copenhagen, and some smaller industrial companies as well. We are active in all those packages. Some of the packages we're actually leading. And the intent here is to actually, in real life, in a part of the city where people are living, to test behavior up against pricing, up against comfort. So to create what is a comfort level that you want to have in your house compared to the pricing and what pricing signals should the system react on. That's being tested. So you can see the work packages are broken down into data collection. There's one on home automation, where you also again here have the comfort of living in those houses, depending on heating, cooling, and when and pricing. There's a work package on district heating alone. There's one on power grid design, including power storage. There's one concerned about EV buses, EV cars, and also shore to ship. There's one where we are integrating the whole energy infrastructure, and there's a showroom where we're basically showcasing this for visitors. We expect a lot of visitors to come see the site, and also there's a work package on data collection. So this is going to run the next 5 years, and again we just started, so this is the first year, and we are already on our road. The first areas that we're looking into are buildings, so we're already working and implementing technologies in building. One final comment is that what I also think makes this very interesting, that this is existing technology, so it's not an R&D project where we have to go and develop new products and new technologies. It's really applying available technologies out into an actual living community to see how technology and people can work together. The next one is how do we move around when we leave our homes. Obviously, many ways of moving around. Some people are biking, some people are walking, but let's agree that we also drive a lot. Electrical cars has had its iterations. The first electrical cars, at least the first that I tried, was not that impressive. Well, then when you get to Tesla, it's a little more impressive. So I think there's iterations. Products are going to be developed. They're going to become better and better, more comfortable, etc., etc. I understand that it was the 700 or 800 electrical vehicles that you have already in Iceland. In Denmark, I think it's between 3,000 and 4,000. We have installed about 100 fast and medium chargers around the Danish highways, so you can actually now drive from Denmark, from Copenhagen, to the northern part of Jutland or the southern part of Jutland by means of electrical car, and you can charge your vehicle when you need at a gas station. So it's really those fast chargers are placed in the gasoline stations when you're driving along the highway. Instead of putting fuel into your car, you're putting electricity into your car. We do see still that the majority of cars being used is being used in cities. A lot of families are using it as a second car to kind of test this new phenomenon. But I believe it's a matter of time. The charging time is coming down, the size of batteries are coming up, your length of your ride is increasing, and I think it's a matter of time, and some lines are going to cross where suddenly you're going to see a massive use of electrical cars. However, electrical cars is still a very private thing. So whenever any of us here is deciding which car we want. There's a lot of emotions in that, and rightfully so. So it's a very personal decision. If we take electrical buses, however, this really should not be the same emotional decision, because here you are looking at buses driving in cities and are noisy and they're polluting. Still a fact of life, even though they're probably less polluting than in the good old days. Nevertheless, they're polluting. Here technology is really moving from hybrid solutions that was diesel electrical to now hybrid. That's what we sold last year. Today on the market it's hybrid, which is electrical diesel, so the majority is electrical driven and diesel as a minor part. And already next year it is expected that we're going to see a lot of full electrical vehicles driving in the cities in Europe. We don't build the buses or the trucks. We do the whole charging infrastructure. So the fast chargers, the whole fasting infrastructure, the whole supervision of it, the whole upgrade of software, the insurance that no malfunction is happening, no cybersecurity attacks, etc., etc. So that's really what we supply, and that's happening more and more in European cities and even the small country I'm representing, Denmark. All the major cities are looking into using electrical buses for all the right reasons. And all the right reasons is obviously it's clean. Overall it's cheaper. It's also cheaper because it's obviously polluting less, and obviously you're going to have less people being sick from exhaust. And then there's another way that you can actually think electrical buses that you can never think diesel buses. I saw a picture that kind of, to me at least, it opened my eyes, where I was pretty impressed, where you're actually driving the electrical bus into the building. So think hospitals, think universities, think shopping malls, those kind of areas. You can actually drive the electrical bus right into the building. So why do people, especially elderly people, have to walk in snow with canes or wheelchairs, or just waiting out in the blizzard or the 40-degree hot sun or wherever it is in the world, when you can actually drive that bus into the building and pick up people inside the building, something you could never do with a diesel-driven bus. So completely new ways of thinking transportation. The last one is shore to ship, and you can see some pretty astonishing numbers here on the right. Just talking about one ship this is a calculation from US, talking about the not only the savings but also the fact that the medical bill is quite astonishing. That's 3.2 million in cost with just one cruise ship laying ashore, and then the emission is actually equivalent to, as it says here, 2,500 vehicles. So for all the right reasons, cruise ships typically sail into the downtown of their destinations, because that's where the guest wants to be. We have about one every day on an average in smack downtown Copenhagen, and it's polluting as much as a 50 megawatt coal-fired power plant built in with 1950 technology, and it's located right in the middle of Copenhagen. So it's a tremendous polluting factor. And what has been done in Scandinavia, it has been agreed, Denmark was following Norway and Sweden, to actually say that cruise ships that arrives in Copenhagen can get the power from shore. It almost costs, so there will be hardly any taxation on the power being used for ships to make it more attractive to cruise ship to use this technology. So, and then on top of that, you get rid of your vibration. Obviously, your vibration, your noise, your pollution. You can actually build closer to the harbor front, because your houses can actually, the very expensive real estate can be used if you have ships that are not noisy. We also, to the Danish Navy, we have two naval ports, and they're actually in cities or close to residential areas. We've supplied this power from shore technology for both. One we've installed some years ago. We just got the order to do the other one, because they want to get rid of the pollution, they want to get rid of the vibration and the noise. And here, looking at all those three areas, I'm in a country that has, really clean energy, a clean society, and I'm pretty sure that you want to keep it that way. So for me, there's fantastic opportunities to use your fairly inexpensive electricity and avoid to import a lot of diesel fuel and burn it off in your beautiful country. Now we go to work, and a lot is happening at work. And am I supposed to do something here? No. Okay. Well, so in manufacturing, the triangle that you can see between people, services, and things is going to also to almost explode. There's actually a prognosis saying that manufacturing will change so dramatically in the next years. 25% increase of use of robots. Again, the robots become less expensive, more and more sophisticated with sensor technology, can do more and more accurate thing, surgery and all kinds of other things that were not possible before. So the inflow of robots is going to increase tremendously. Even Foxconn, one of the biggest companies in the world, Chinese manufacturer of iPhone, plans to use 1 million robots in their manufacturing. So it's really a big numbers we're talking about. So a huge inflow of robots. The devices will allow for communication. 28 billion connected devices is expected in 2020. So 28 billion devices connected via the internet in 2020. So it gives us a tremendous opportunity to do things much more efficient, less costly. Obviously, there's a downside to it that I'm going to share in a few seconds as well. Yep. So this is the latest from our robotics. Well, no, I can see it on my screen. I cannot see it there. It's running on the two screens here. Here we are. So this is called Yumi. This is the world's first two-arm collaborative robot. This is actually a movie from a Swedish warehouse last Christmas. So customers that would go and buy presents would be wrapped by our Yumi robot. So we do a complete wrapping. As you can see, 2 arms. Not only that, it doesn't require any safety fencing. So if you stand and work with that robot and you touch the robot, it'll stop. So it doesn't require any safety features. Very easy to program. Try it myself. You simply take the hands and you basically move the hands to the next operation and record the points. And then from there on, it's a matter of, say, clever engineers to find clever solutions to, as you can see, wrap a gift. I can guarantee you that I'll do it much faster. I can also guarantee you mine looks lousy compared to this. So this is the latest robot. We're currently working with a company in the pharmaceutical area that want to use 28 of those for various tasks in the pharmaceutical world. If you wonder, hey, this is really what I want to buy to my wife or for myself to do dishes or whatever, price tab is from 40,000 euro and upwards. So I think the imagination is the limit. We've basically in Denmark said that we have this fantastic robot, but to really find the killer application, we've challenged a lot of young people on universities and say, come up with a good idea and we'll give you a prize, because that's really what we need, the ingenuity from all the people out there that can see, yes, the robot can do certain things, but what kind of application should we use it for? And then it says, here you are. So, I think, as I said, this area is going to really, if not explode, then increase rapidly. And we need to, because in the western part of the world, we need to increase automation to increase quality and to increase our competitiveness. We also, as has been mentioned before in the previous presentations, energy saving. Just the energy saving that we have helped achieving is 445 terawatt hours by use of our ABB drives that we've sold. Quite an astonishing number. Looking into that, we also see this is kind of a challenge when we see more, and again, this is a Danish experience, more and more renewable energy into our system. It also becomes a more sensitive system. We don't have blackouts, but we do have a lot of brownouts. So we see pharmaceutical companies, we see hospitals fighting, we see some banks, data centers fighting with brownouts, and obviously we're out there helping them with putting power electronics into the facilities. Data center, also something really, really growing. 4 years ago, I was told that the energy used for flying people around the world is less than the energy used for data centers globally. This is 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. And so you can imagine what has happened since. So the global energy consumed for data centers far surpasses the energy that we all use globally to do air travel. With the use of DC technology, we believe that we can reduce the energy uses by 20% in future data centers, something that should be highly interesting. And also here in Iceland is an attractive place to locate data centers. The big shifts in power, it has been mentioned before also that yes, coal, oil, gas is still the predominant historically. It will not go away in developing countries. In India, China, there's a lot to be built, there are lots planned to be built. However, in this part of the world, we do convert, as Troels also said, to biomass very rapidly. And also then the big thing is renewable energy. Wind, solar, wave, and water coming very strongly. And actually with the oil crisis, there's actually discussion among some experts that they believe that the renewable energy is going to develop so rapidly, the cost is coming down, that actually it's going to be not interesting for certain users to ever use oil again. In transmission, well, because of the renewable energy, we as a small country, Denmark, with a very flexible system, but also a very volatile system, needs to connect to countries around us. So that's why we build connection to Sweden, to Germany, planning now to UK and also to Holland. That is a necessity. We also now are building the first ever in the world called Kriegers-Flak. Kriegers-Flak is a transmission line that connects Denmark and Germany with the unique feature that in the middle of that connection there's a windmill. So that windmill farm would produce energy that can flow either towards Denmark or towards Germany. So that is the first being built, and we believe that's going to be the basis for the future power grid. On micro and nanogrids, we see, for various reasons around the world, the need to be completely isolated from a transmission line, or to at least work semi-isolated from a transmission line by means of water, wind, solar, diesel generation, etc. In Africa, it is completely isolated microgrids because there's no transmission lines. So we are selling quite a few microgrids in that part of the world. Then also using batteries and flywheels to stabilize the grids. So that's a very big trend as well. The cybersecurity, I've mentioned the 28 billion devices that will connect over the internet. That's fantastic. It's going to make our life easier to live and a lot of features. However, crime has moved away from the street to the screen. There's more crime now being committed behind computer screens than on streets, and people breaking into houses, stealing bikes and cars, etc. And that will continue. So our private computers and data and bank data, etc., is obviously at risk, and also a company's data is at risk. And it's happening. There's a Danish company that was hacked. They basically froze the source code, and in order to release that, they had to pay money into a bank account in Switzerland before they would release the code and they could start producing again. So it is actually happening. So what we are very cautious about is, when we sell systems, that when we design it, we make sure that hacking is not possible, malicious software is not being entered, and we try to make firewalls and people accessibility to systems very well controlled. We help customers continue to supervise and upgrade systems because the bad guys are not sleeping 24/7. They are also finding new ways of getting into systems, so we're always on the attack, developing new systems that make sure that our systems cannot be attacked. So I think the challenge for anybody into this fantastic future with some 28 billion devices giving us access is to select the right ones and to select the right partners that we can work with to make sure that our system is not being tampered or attacked by criminals. So in summing up, we are moving towards an electrical society, no doubt. I mean, electricity is floating more and more into the modern society, driven by renewable energy, being on the utility side, the industry side, the transportation infrastructure. In our homes, we will see them more and more and more, and I think it's a good thing. And really, we are in one of the places in the world where this should be a fantastic opportunity, because you have the natural resources. You have the natural resources from a geography point of view, and you have the natural resources from a human capital point of view. So you should really be ready to endeavor this journey, probably before the rest of the world. So thank you. With a little side note, yes, we might beat you in football, but what does it help if we always win the matches that doesn't count, and then we lose the ones that counts? You were a little more clever than we were, and we wish you all the best for the upcoming championships.
I have to apologize, Klaus. I forgot, because I was in such a hurry earlier. I forgot to tell the name of your presentation, Global Technical Megatrends. So if I could ask the speakers to stand up, and I know we are running a little bit late, and if you want to pop out 2 or 3 questions, but I know they will be happy to stay here a little bit longer, so if you want to have a discussion with them after the meeting, they will be outside drinking coffee and having some croissant. So if I can ask you to come up, and I have 2 microphones moving up and down. So if you have a question, please raise your hands up and make a short introduction. But I have a question, so I want to be the first. How can you convince the politicians and the industry to make an agreement like you did in Denmark? It's a long-term agreement, it's costly. I mean, who and how were they convinced? So, Troels.
They were convinced because the deal contained both a stable investment environment to a fair price, about 450 million euro yearly from 2020, fully phased in. And on the other hand, securing competitiveness on the industrial sector as a whole. And this combination of the way to go forward in Danish energy policy with a link to the business policy in general is the way to ensure that both classic industrial sectors as well as the energy industry in itself agreed upon that this was the right path to follow. And the target is not to discussion. We are to deal with effects of GHG, greenhouse gases. We are to ensure security of supply. We are to develop business-wise the industry sector, increasing Danish exports, also on technology products from the energy industry. We are an open economy, everybody knows that, and we are in a competitive environment, and export is part of the DNA of Danish businesses in general. So everybody agrees there is a fully support from the industry organization and from every industry sector in Denmark to this energy long-term energy agreement in Denmark. And this has been a leading signal, I guess, also for the politician in Denmark, that if industry can't, then we can.
Thank you, Troels. Any questions? One in the back. Please introduce yourself and if you can give him the microphone.
Hello, my name is Daði from Landsvirkjun. This is a practical question. A bit curious about the backup power that you will use for the 50% wind penetration. And I'm also interested in hearing if there are any political problems with exporting a lot of wind, cheap wind, to neighboring markets.
Yeah, I think maybe Troels can take the political, but I think that I think you have to look at the natural resources where they are. If you really think long-term EU, you need to say we have tremendous natural resources in the northern part because the wind is blowing. As a citizen, you can say too much. You can say as a wind producer, fantastic. But there's very good wind resources, some of the best in the world. So extract all the energy you can do out of that wind energy and then use it in Europe. And you can reverse it and go south and say we can do the opposite with solar in the south and produce in the south and send north. And then it's only a matter of transmission distributing and because there's obviously a lot of political challenges in that. But as a fundamental principle, I think it makes an awful lot of sense to use the energy where it is available best possible. So I don't think in Denmark we see that as an issue that we are selling the excess power. We obviously would want to get away from situations where we had that in the past, where we're actually giving away the excess energy, so we actually have to pay to get rid of it. That's a bad deal. So yes, it has to be a business case that gives a plus, but selling wind power, I think in general the public is finding that it's a very good idea.
Perhaps I can add that this is still good business for Denmark to sell the generated electricity to neighboring countries. We're using power plant capacity in the neighboring countries also to balance the Danish energy system on day-to-day basis here, and also to handle this 50% target for wind energy in Denmark. So we are highly dependent on having a good, not only a good Danish grid, but also interconnectors to the neighboring countries, and to have access possibility through these connectors and the available lines. We will develop this even further, also to deal with the 50% target in 2020, and that's why we need the Kriegers Flak project, as Klaus has highlighted for you, as well as the Viking link to UK, more capacity to Germany as well, and even the Netherlands. But Germany is a case in itself for Denmark. They have a task in front of them to develop there in a given, as you are probably very well aware of. This is much about investment in infrastructure in Germany, getting fluctuating power to the southern part where the big industry is, the car manufacturing industries in Germany are. We really need to develop this grid structure in Europe, but also in Denmark. And hopefully we can reach out even to UK and perhaps even further to Iceland. The bigger the market is, the better pricing we will have in the future. That's my opinion, at least.
Thomas Möller from Rými Opnasmiðjan. I thank you for your lectures, Iris, Klaus and Troels. I have a full notebook of ideas for my company, so thank you for your presentations. I have 3 worries, 3 things to think about. One is we in the industry we are told to expect higher electrical energy prices in Iceland in the coming years. If we have the power cable to the UK, prices will go up. We have extremely low electrical prices in Iceland now. Can we expect that in the future? Number 2, pollution travels from China to Europe in 6 weeks. Is it worth it really? Small nations being clean while the big ones are throwing out all the dirt. And number 3, higher electrical energy, but the oil will keep low in the next 5 to 10 years. This must be a big challenge for electrical utilization, having all this oil so cheap for such a long time.
So maybe question number 1 would go to Iris, you think, or if you can answer that one, Iris?
Yes, I can start answering it. It will be interesting to hear also from you guys. Because you were asking regarding the electricity prices in Iceland and the impact of the cable. And I think you can probably have a whole essay about that response. And I think we are following, and the people who are researching on that cable are following very closely the prices in Europe because of the issues you're talking about. But of course, users in Iceland want low prices while the producers want high prices. And somehow you have to look at the whole benefit of the Icelandic society of connecting to Europe. And I think that's the key of looking at how you as a user would react in a market connected to Europe. It would be, we're talking about a cable of 1,000 megawatts. Of course, some electricity would be bound within Iceland. So probably we wouldn't have the exact same price in Europe as in Iceland, just like in Europe you have several market areas. So in some way it can be controlled. But also I think you'll have to look at it from the user perspective and the producer perspective. So maybe not a concrete answer there. But we've seen also that the prices in Europe have been changing a lot. And you have now a much broader price variation within the day, within months, and within the time of year. And you see, I saw it recently, for example, in Finland, where they have more demand response in their system, that the users are adjusting their electricity demand after the market prices. And there the fluctuations were huge. And I've heard also in Europe with the wind power coming in that the prices have been extremely low for periods as well. So I think there are benefits to both users and producers in Iceland. It's just a question of how you're going to use those opportunities. But of course, a completely changed landscape.
Klaus has a comment, right?
Sure. Let me take the other 2, because the first one I think is very domestic. The pollution, I completely agree. I mean, as a world citizen, I have to say the same reflection that, yeah, we also living in a clean country, Denmark, and trying to make it even cleaner. And, well, when you look at other countries polluting severely. So I completely agree with that is a global threat. However, that should never be an argument for not doing what you can do to have your own society clean. For the simple reason, try to visit Helsinki, try to visit Copenhagen, try to visit Beijing, and you will know what a difference it is to live in those countries. And people, I mean, they're literally dying out there because of the heavy pollution in those big cities. And governments are trying to do something about it. Then the comment on the oil price. Yes, oil price and maybe also shale gas to a certain extent is really pressing the price of energy down and can make it challenging for a good return on investment on renewable energy. However, I think there's one thing that we shouldn't forget, and that is COP21 was a very big success. It's the first time that we actually have 100 plus countries sign up to wanting to do something about it. And we feel, from an industry point of view, I'm sure Troels can echo that this discussion is not going away, that nations have not said, well, we came to Paris and we drank some champagne and we went home and did things as usual. It is being developed on. It is actually happening. So I think that this train is moving. It will continue to move. There you can talk about the speed and you can talk about the remedies, but the train is moving. It will continue to move. And last comment, I think also energy efficiency should be playing into that game. I was in UK about a year ago and met some people from the government in London and actually learned, I didn't know that a Danish household and a UK household, they have about the same energy bill on a monthly basis. The Danish is based on 20% energy and 80% taxation. The English one is reversed. It's 80% consumption and 20% taxation. So you can say, as a citizen in those two countries, you pay the same, but 80% of the taxation is being used to improve your society, and only 20% is your actual consumption for the energy. So I think it's a good example of what you can do if you are trying to balancing energy efficiency and taxation and trying to create a clean society.
So one more comment from Troels, and I think we have to finish with the questions.
I can briefly comment also on the electricity pricing, because the electricity market price on yearly average in Denmark these days, being a part of the Nord Pool that I highlighted for you early on, is about 3 euro cent per kilowatt hour. 3 euro cent. It has never been lower. So electricity market prices are to some extent very attractive. But as Claus mentioned, we have taxation above that, and this gives, of course, a different energy bill towards both industrials and ordinary and private consumers in the end. And this will always be up to discussion. What kind of taxation schemes do we use in the different countries? But be aware that with all that generated capacity that we have in the electricity market, and much is also today conventional, is giving a pressure downwards to the electricity price. But wind production in itself is very attractive because it produces, as you said, at very low, nearly zero marginal cost. So eventually, being a part of the ordinary electricity market, we will have to see, is it possible to earn enough money if you have a utility perspective in the electricity market design as we know it today, or do we need to have some careful future thinking about the design of the electricity market, because we also have to ensure that we have well-functioning business in the utility sector and on energy production in itself. So there are different considerations to this discussion here that need to be settled for the future. But electricity market prices are historically the lowest that we have ever seen today in Denmark.
Thank you, Troels. So I sincerely want to apologize for breaking the time frame. I want to thank you especially for the speakers. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for very interesting presentations. I want to thank you all for coming also, and I also want to thank everybody who are watching it on the internet. Again, if you want to see the slides or get the slides, if you want to see the presentation again, you can go into running.is and download or watch it live. So my name is Haraldur Líndar Pétursson. I thank you very much for today. Thank you.